Have mercy on my soul. Have mercy on my soul. Oh, Father, I just pray for forgiveness. Please relieve me from my woes. Oh, please help me, you're my only witness. Have mercy on my soul. Oh, Father, I just pray for forgiveness. Please relieve me from my woes. Oh, please help me, you're my only witness. Keep dreaming on. It's not what it seems. Keep dreaming on. Don't resist the dream.
What up, everybody, man? Happy February 14th, man. Y'all know I ain't gonna say that day, man. Y'all know who it is, man. Back again with a little bit editing we gotta do here real quick. But yeah, I'm trying to come at you a little bit earlier, man. I got some things I want to handle here real quick, man. But y'all know who it is, man. It's your boy, the Kung Fu Hebrew, man, coming at you on this February 14th, a day that we're gonna talk about tonight too. We're gonna get into that stuff too. But once again, if you got who I was, man, I'm gonna let my dog tell you one more time.
And my man, my brother, Kung Fu Fighting, Kung Fu Hebrew. Ho, 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 ho. Ha! Ho, 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 ho. Ha!
Yeah, man. So I want to come in a little early. I know I said I was gonna go at like 7 o'clock, but I just want to come in a little bit earlier tonight. Because I know on this day some of y'all might be out to eat, or you might be the day that everybody either realized they could be the main, or I always say it's a side chick awareness day. You know what I'm saying? You can find out today whether or not you are the main person in a relationship, or you can find out, kind of sort of where your place is. But I think this day is, I'm going to go into a little bit tonight in my lesson just to give you a little background information. Not going to go too deep into it, but this is the topic of the night show is basically talking about divine intervention and waiting on God, and basically why waiting on a spouse, and in quotation marks, from God is a bad idea, and bad idea would be selling it short, right? And I'm going to go into multiple examples of why it would be a bad idea and why we have to stop using this trope, why we have to quit using this as an excuse for either why we're single, why we have the people who we have now, why we're not happy, all these different things that we're going to have to go in and analyze. I think that we've got to definitely take a look at those type of things. So what I want to do a little differently. I have a little music in the background. It's February the 14th, so have something playing in the background a little bit, kind of make it a little different. Right. Make sure it ain't too loud. And if you're out there checking in, just let me know if the music is too loud. And if you can't hear me over the music, then just let me know, and I'll definitely make the adjustment. But like I said, tonight's show, we're going to be talking about this. And like I said, on a day like today, where, number one, so much money is made. So many different things are going on today that I don't think we're aware of. And once again, talking to the people who claim to believe in this book, right? So if you claim to believe in this book, there's certain things that we're not supposed to be doing. There's certain things that we're supposed to be following. And I think sometimes we just kind of want to, like they say, you want to go along to get along. And especially in some of these situations where it could be beneficial, you might want to get some gifts, might want to get taken out to eat and all these other things. But I just, ask a simple question. Well, how special are you if you only get recognized on the day where the world, not even the church, not even the Bible, Jesus nor God or anybody else told you that this day was supposed to be special or memorable? And sometimes it can even be problematic if you don't do, in quotation marks, enough. So we have to start really trying to analyze, are we really just trying to play games with this? Or are we really trying to be serious about what we claim that we're trying to be? So let me just go ahead and get right into it. I'm not going to be long tonight. That's not because I have anywhere to go or that I have anything to do or I have some surprise waiting on me or anything like that. No, I just, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be honest. It's some basketball games coming on in a little bit. And that's how I'm going to spend my February the 14th. Not fighting no lines, not out here trying to buy chocolates and flowers and jewelry, just because the world says it's supposed to be a day of importance, where I think if we actually understood and we actually really wanted to be treated in a more excellent manner. If you're with somebody who only recognizes you on the day where everybody else will, being like your birthday, your anniversary, Valentine's Day, right? How special are you? Because you're getting recognized on the same day that the world says. Does he or she do things just to say, hey, look, I really appreciate you. I'm very grateful for how you treat me. I'm very amazed by being with you. I wake up every morning just thinking about how I can make your load lighter, how I can make your day better. And it's not because I need a holiday to do it. But I want to go ahead and get into it. Definitely want to make that bigger, make myself smaller over here. All right, cool. So once again, why waiting on God, also called divine intervention, is a bad idea, if horrible, whatever words you want to put in there, it could qualify for all of them. So let's keep going. So my objective tonight is basically to explain the origins of Valentine's Day. I'm going to get into that a little bit because I think you need to know what you're doing, I didn't do anything about Christmas. I might do something about Christmas this year, but I didn't do anything last year. But when we have these holidays that we want to adopt and we just want to say, well, I'm going to take it and change it, or I'm going to take it and do this. You got to ask yourself, what would God want you to do? You got to ask yourself, what would the Most High want you to do, right? Because it's almost like saying, if I go back into the Bible, if they were worshiping Baal or they were worshiping El or they were worshiping Asherah, because they say, yeah, I'm going to worship this idol of Asherah, but I'm going to say this is the Most High. I'm going to say this is Yahweh. You understand? I'm going to say this is Yahweh. You understand? I know that ain't the Messiah, right? But I'm going to just worship somebody else and call them the Messiah because they know, or I'm just going to take it and turn it into something better. You understand what I'm saying? It's like if all of a sudden, Halloween is looked at as a pretty bad holiday, in quotation marks, right? So if all of a sudden they said, we're going to flip Halloween, and Halloween's going to be Moses' birthday. Would you celebrate it and, still do everything else that's associated with what it is now, the candy, the zombies, and are you still gonna do all that and say, oh, but I'm changing it up. I'm doing it for Moses. I ain't doing it for the devil. It's like, come on, man. We gotta do better than that. I want to give some biblical examples of what I call blessed relationships, and then I want to explain how a Uriah might be necessary. And when I say that, you're probably like, what in the world is he talking about? I'll get to that, and I'm going to explain what I mean. And I don't mean, let me go and explain this right now. So I was like, I'm going to have to do it 3 times, like Umar Johnson. I do not mean you should commit adultery and kill somebody else's spouse. I do not mean that you should commit adultery and kill someone's spouse. I do not mean you should commit adultery and kill someone's spouse. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. So number one, man, we want to come in this conversation with an open mind. Nothing is absolute, right? Because we're dealing with scriptures that can range anywhere from 3,000 to 2,000, 21, 19, 1,800 years old, right? And they've been translated, so we can't really speak in absolutes. We can only go to the best of our ability, try to use our discernment, try to, feel what makes sense logically, because I do believe we worship a God of logic as well. So we need to keep that in mind. Relationships are one of the most complicated topics on the planet. All right. There is no simple solution, right? Because all humans are different. I know there's a lot of YouTubery about relationships and singles and married and how to do certain things better, how to do this, how to do that. But at the end of the day, I think it's more custom, right? Everybody has to take their own individual situation and look at like what is something that's going to be custom fit for you? What is something that you can do specifically and personally? Because if we're all different, how can there be kind of sort of like a basic solution for everybody? So some things that might work for me might not work for you. Some things that you might allow or that somebody else might be willing to deal with or not allow. We're all special, I know a snowflake was different, but if you think about a snowflake, they claim every snowflake is different. So us as human beings, we're all different. So there's not going to be a one size fits all solution. I want to do my opening scripture, and that's going to come from the book of Proverbs 18 and 22. And it says, he who finds a true and faithful wife finds a good thing and obtains favor and approval from the Lord. 2 important parts that I like that's put in by the Amplified Bible is it says true and faithful. And even though it doesn't say that, I believe the opposite should go to a woman as well. If you find a true and faithful husband, you find a good thing as well. You understand? Because I'm pretty sure the women out there who have been dealing with men of a certain caliber, they understand, especially if they've been dealing with things like infidelity or just a liar. If you have a man that is honest and loyal, that's gotta be a good thing. That's almost like you say that does seem like could be something heaven sent. And it said that when you do this, you'll obtain favor and approval from the Lord. So that's the one thing that I like to make sure people understand, that when you find that partner, because the first commandment was be fruitful and multiply. When you find that good partner, that is, in my opinion, a necessary part of obtaining that favor and approval. You want to be able to put yourself in a position, because we were not created to be alone. Even though Adam was created alone, we're going to get to that a little bit later, but you have to understand, there was a more excellent plan in place. And the second scripture is going to be Proverbs 21 and 9, and it says, it is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. Basically saying, and I'm going to do it both ways as well, if you're dealing with an unruly woman, you're dealing with an unruly wife, I'm only going to speak about wives on the show, because I'm saying you're either single or you're married. There is no in between. There's no boyfriend, girlfriend in the Bible. There's no relationship. You could be betrothed. I'll give you a little bit, but you're still single until you walk across that aisle or you go into that wedding tent. But more than likely, y'all been going into the wedding tent probably about 2 weeks into the relationship. But basically saying, man, if you got a stubborn, unruly spouse, it's better basically just to go sit on the roof and just be by yourself, deal with all the weather, deal with the animals, deal with the birds, deal with the sun, deal with anything else than to deal with somebody who's just always trying to fight, someone who's always trying to be argumentative all the time. It's better just to go be by yourself outside than to deal with this. So you have to think about it. You don't want to be a brawling woman, and you don't want to be a man that's always trying to be argumentative as well. Because, once again, these proverbs are very poignant sometimes when they're actually trying to explain like simple things in a more poetic way. So imagine that. Just things are so bad in the house, not that you go outside and you take a sip of your favorite drink, or you smoke whatever it is you decide to smoke. It's like, nah, I'm gonna go sit on the roof because this woman is just driving me crazy. Or imagine coming home, you just got off of work and you come home and your wife is just sitting on the roof just looking distraught, just because she knows you're gonna come home and she's gonna have to deal with you. Like, that's not a good situation that I think anybody wants to strive for. So let's keep going. Valentine's Day. The possible origin is Lupercalia, which was a Greek festival which included fertility rituals, animal sacrifices, feasting, matchmaking, and love lotteries. So basically, these love lotteries would basically hook you up during the time of Valentine's Day, and that would be your partner in more ways than one during the whole festival of Lupercalia. The fertility rituals could have it's kind of funny to me, I got a certain sense of humor. So allegedly, or apparently, these Greek men, they would dress up, they would put on these, I believe, sheepskin garments, and then they would go around and women who wanted to be fertile or conceive or have a baby, they would take like some meat and just slap them across the face with it. So imagine you already know how the Greeks got down anyway. So imagine a festival where a whole bunch of half-naked and sometimes naked people are running around, and the men are slapping them in the face with raw meat. Like, the Greeks do some crazy stuff, but for some reason, we just want to keep following behind the crazy stuff they're done. Even if you look into the fact that it's in the month of February, and you go into the backstory of why February is named February, once again, comes from the Greeks. Another thing you got to look at. I know we can't do anything about the month now. I get it, right? But it's still just, in my opinion, just good to know when I say February, what am I talking about? So this is one of the possible origins, man. Shout out to little Cupid, little Negrito Cupid over there. Let's keep going. So Valentine's Day continued. All right, if you look right there on the screen, this is kind of what you would have been expecting. It's like another one of these like pagan fertility festivals where everybody's running around getting naked, having sex, doing a whole lot of different things. The Christian church eventually adopted the holiday after St. Valentine. Not necessarily adopted it, but they kind of re-envisioned it after who they called a guy who was St. Valentine, who we don't have any hard, concrete evidence that he existed. But basically, they said that, I believe it was around the 3rd century, that he was trying to marry young couples, and that was against the law at the time, and he was eventually killed because of that. So then this is the reason why it's supposed to be like a romantic thing. He was, in spite of the law, he was still trying to marry young people. So allegedly he got martyred and he became a saint through the Catholic Church and things like that. So if you know who Richard Cadbury is, I believe he's the guy who does the Cadbury eggs and things like that. So that also has something to do with Easter as well. But he popularized like chocolates in the 1860s. So once again, we even can look at the economic reason for Valentine's Day. And if you look at how most of these holidays fall, they basically, there's got to be a major holiday basically every quarter. So you got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th quarter. You got, 4 quarters a year, right? So there's always seems to be like, you had New Year's Day, now you got Valentine's Day. And as we keep going, you got spring break coming up. Then you got like Cinco de Mayo, 4th of July, Labor Day, all that stuff. So it's always like some holiday to basically keep the economy going. But I'm not trying to get too deep into that. And I just want you to know, like, this is the reason why chocolates are done, because someone wanted to capitalize on the fact that we were going to celebrate this holiday about love. And, oh, well, why don't you give your woman some chocolate? So that's where the box of chocolates come. And then the heart shape was the symbol for Cupid or Eros. So why do you get roses? Because roses were sacred to Venus or Aphrodite, who was a goddess, Greek goddess of love, sometimes a goddess of fertility as well. But this is the reason why the red roses on Valentine's Day or pink rose and things like that. You're basically doing symbolization to Aphrodite. Now, some of y'all would say it's not that serious. It's just, I just want to give my girl a flower. I don't want to have no problems. But once again, it's still idolatry at the end of the day. There's no way around it. It is idolatry. We can't try to dress it up because, once again, I'll just ask you a simple question. If you're a Christian, show me where Jesus celebrated Valentine's Day, or give me scripture and verse that says this is something we're supposed to be doing. And if you can do that, and I'll give you the whole entire Apocrypha to use, all 54 to 58 extra books that they didn't include in the Bible. I'll give you the whole Apocrypha. You can find anything about this day where, and the Lord said, thou shalt give thy woman chocolate and roses and jewelry on this day. We can have a conversation. But until then, I think this is something we need to go ahead and get rid of, especially in the church. So, let's talk about why waiting on God is unwise. Number one, you have these things called one-sided confirmations, right? If you were single and you prayed and you said, however you pray, dear God, please send me a good man or a woman, depending on, heterosexual way you go, right? Please send me a good man or woman. I just really, really am lonely, and I just want to just be with somebody. I want a strong man, and you start going to all your different qualifications and things that you want, even though a lot of things that we're asking for probably are not biblical. We're asking, like I've admitted on other podcasts and things like that, I'm a very visual person. So I know they say a lot of people in the Bible were beautiful. A lot of the women were, whatever the case may be. But, God is very specific. A lot of the scriptures are very specific when it talks about the beauty of a woman, when it talks about some things being vain. You know what I mean? And I understand that. And, that's something that I have to continuously work on because, like I said, it's not a one-day battle. It's a continual journey of self-improvement and growth. So once again, let's talk about a one-sided confirmation. You don't want to deal with that. Because if a woman came up to me and said, God told me that I'm supposed to be your wife, I would think to myself, well, I'm already married 2 times. And why did he just tell you? Why didn't he tell me? That's definitely not what you want. And same thing for a lady. If a man came up to you and told you that God sent him to be your husband, would you just believe that? Or would you be like, yo, what is that? Right? So you don't want to do this. God sent me. I'm waiting on God. We don't want to live in that type of environment, right? Because once again, a one-sided confirmation means only one half of the deal got told something. So did God tell him, or he didn't tell you? Like that's gonna get crazy. Then it's like, did he tell you in an audible voice? Did he tell you in a dream? How did this happen? Was it like Constantine? Was it a vision in the sky? And like Stevie Wonder, he saw you in the ribbon, all that stuff. Man, like no. I don't think that's a good way to do it, right? Any issues you have basically is gonna make God a false god, right? So if someone says God sent me to be with you, and he or she turns out to be the absolute worst, right? Then you're telling me that what? God is a liar. God, you messed it up or he messed it up, but God is still right. No, you got to understand, because if you accept the fact and you believe that this person that you're with is, like they say, in some of these music, right? You're heaven sent, right? If you want to believe that, this is divine intervention for this person being in your life. And it doesn't mean that you can't have a good relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean your relationship is divine. We got to understand what we're talking about. Like, you can have a good relationship. You have a good marriage, strong marriage, last all the way up until death. It doesn't mean that it was necessarily divine just because it works or just because it lasts. So some of these things we need to necessarily stop trying to put everything on God. Because once again, any problems is going to make God false. You don't want to fall into that category saying, oh, thank you, God. Thank you for sending me this good man. And then 3 days later, he cheats on you. Now what? So now let's talk about two-sided confirmations. You prayed, he prayed, and then somehow y'all just came together, right? And y'all just believe that y'all are just meant to be. Once again, it's going to have the same issue as I talked about with the first one. Any problems are going to make God false, okay? So even with a two-sided confirmation, it's going to have to be pretty clear But I'm gonna get into some simple examples in the Bible where we kind of got a little bit of confirmation and different things like that. But some of the things that some people are using as justification for some of these relationships, yeah, you, like I said, man, it's almost like you might as well just join the cult at a certain point, because if you're gonna just fall for that, then it's gonna be a bad situation. And then the last thing we got to understand when we're talking about, yo, what up, Gary? One thing, man, when we're talking about these relationships and we're talking about free will, so that's another thing you got to take into account. We have to discuss free will, because if you're praying for God to send you a spouse, a partner, whoever the case may be, once again, we are under the standing that God can do anything, right? He's omnipotent, he's all powerful, all those things, right? However, from Adam all the way to the present, we have seen free will represented, So if you're going to say that God is going to, you don't want to, like you say, do you want to be the exception or do you want to be the rule? I don't know if I would want to believe that a woman was that great of a woman that I believe God had something to do with it, to the extent of now free will has been taken out of it. Because once again, I mean, to my knowledge, you got Adam was the last person to, not come through the womb of a woman. So, I mean, you have to take these things into account. But let me keep going. So, the role of discernment, man, this is something a lot of women call it women's intuition, but men, we have it as well. But this is something that a lot of people like to talk about, but it's not. This is the part where I say this is probably going to be about as much help as you're going to get. And that's why I say discernment is going to be the strongest weapon in dating and marriage, because you need to be able to take your personal feelings, take your personal desires out of the equation, and really try to examine to the strongest of your ability, is this the person who matches up with what the Bible says that I'm supposed to be looking for? What's important? A lot of times these days, a lot of us, man, men, women, we're focused on financials. We're focused on money. We're focused on these different things that are, you can't really justify it in scripture about some of these material desires that we want. I want a man that makes this amount of money. I want a woman that's college educated. It's going to be kind of difficult to really justify that through the book. So you want to be very careful. And I just want to say discernment is going to be the best way to include God in decision making, because if you're out here living like the rest of the world, if you're out there participating in activities and you are moving in a worldly manner, you're going to get worldly results, right? I'm not going to go a lot into sex tonight, but you have to understand, like, sex is going to cloud your judgment. Sex is going to, you're not supposed to be doing it until you get married anyway. And I'm not going to go into how I feel marriage and all those things are anyway, but we were only, in my opinion, designed to be with one person, right? And what I mean by one person is we were only designed to, like, sexually be with one person. And the reason why we sometimes fall into infidelity, we sometimes falls into different things, number one, is because the overstimulation of our eyes that has occurred just with the internet and the information age, but also we've had too much variety. If you think about all the different types of food you eat. Like when you're a little kid, right? If the only thing you had was baby food and it was just like, I don't know, like I'm thinking about something nasty, like lima beans, right? And your mom only gave you lima bean baby food the whole time you was a baby. And all you had your entire life was lima beans, right? It's kind of a horrible way to live, but that's all you would know. So the concept of some of these things that people like to eat, let's say fried chicken, a good steak, a baked potato, all these different things, asparagus, cheesecake, anything that you like to eat or drink. You got to think about it. The reason why you enjoy those other foods is because you've had a variety. But now if you compare the food to sexual experiences, okay, I like it when somebody does this. I don't like it when somebody does this. I don't like it when somebody does, oh, I like that. You see what I'm saying? So we develop these routines that we've developed with multiple partners. So that way when we finally get with somebody, we're trying to get various segments of things that we've liked from a group of people. And that's sometimes where it's been problematic versus if you were just with that one person and y'all were able to learn each other for a lifetime to figure out what it is. A lot of these different industries and a lot of insecurities that some men have. Women wouldn't be so worried about their body. Men wouldn't be insecure about their stamina or their size or any of those type of things, right? Because once again, if you can please your wife, same way with her, if she can please her husband, who cares, right? You're not really concerned about what's going on in the outside world, but I feel like that variety has messed it up. So you got to understand how discernment is going to work, especially, like I said, when your personal desires are not lining up with scripture. That's where we run into problems. If you're looking for a man with big pockets, you got to show me big pockets is a good thing to have in the Bible. If you're motivated sexually, you got to show me where sexual motivation in the Bible led to a good outcome. Okay. So real quick, I just want to talk about Eve, and this is the difference. The first and only woman specifically made for a man was Eve. Okay. And she was designed to be a helpmeet, meaning that she was supposed to help Adam accomplish whatever it was. Because when he looked out, he saw the animals had their partners and they're reproducing. He didn't have anybody. He's just there tending to the garden. That's what he was supposed to be doing. So God sent him someone to help him meet his goals. Biblically, women, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You don't have another purpose. And if you think you have another purpose, scripture and verse that would explain why you're not trying to be a helpmeet, why you're trying to be his, in quotation marks, partner, why you're trying to be a leader, 50-50. All of these concepts that we have in modern times are just not biblical. So we have to be trying to get as close to the core as we can get. I think you also have to remember that Eve gets the majority of the blame for the problems of the world and women in general. You know, I call it the spirit of Eve when I feel like you could be happy. You know what I mean? Like an issue that I run into sometimes is I feel like I'm being a good husband, right? But I'll get a complaint about I could be a little bit more romantic, right? That's cool. I get it, right? But once again, where is romance in the grand scheme of things? Because that's a newer concept, right? You keep thinking, the concept of being bored in a relationship comes up, right? And it's like, well, biblically, what does boring mean, right? I don't even know if you type in bored or boring in the Bible, I don't know if it's anywhere listed in the Bible. So, you know what? Now I got to check it. Let me go to Bible Gateway real quick. So I'm just going to share my screen for 2 seconds because I just want to see something here real quick. Let's just see if boring is anywhere in the Bible. Because I think this is something that happens a lot, right? So let me go to Bible Gateway, right? So if I go here, let's type in boring. It's nowhere in the Bible. Okay, so let's type in the term bored. Okay, and hit search. Okay, it's twice, but I don't think it's the way we use it. 2 Kings 12:9 said, and he bored a hole. So it's talking about digging a hole. So the concept of being bored is not even biblical to begin with. So once again, if this is going to be a book that we want to use as some sort of blueprint for life, we got to throw that concept of being bored out the window, because there's got to be something else you can do. Read the book, start a garden, do anything to occupy your time besides just sitting around talking about how bored you are. That's a ridiculous mindset and mind frame to be in my opinion. But let's keep going. I like to talk about Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. Women, I'm not saying it should take a man 7 years to win your hand, or what it used to take, or a man should take 7 years. I'm gonna tell you right now, if a man waiting 7 years to marry you, he don't want to be with you. But you have to understand the concept between Jacob, Leah, and Rachel. Jacob loved Rachel, right? Jacob loved Rachel. And, the switch up that happened on his wedding night, he ended up getting her sister. And he said he was willing to work 7 years to marry Rachel. Because, the father said, hey, it's not custom for us to give away our younger daughter before we give away the oldest one, right? So he was willing to work 7 years for Rachel. And I think women, you have to be able to look at the model of Jacob, basically saying like, yeah, you don't want to wait 7 years for a man to marry you. No. He should know if not within the first 6 weeks, you should know within the first 6 months. So if you've been dealing with a guy for like 6 to 8 years, I'm not gonna say he's not gonna marry you, but I'm gonna say he's not gonna marry you. So if you look at what Jacob did, 7 years after marrying, your sister. Now I know that's a little crazy, but you had to work 7 years to be with her. But you got to go back and look at Leah. Leah provided all the children, right? All the children, some of the most important tribes in Israel. I mean, if you want to be honest about it, think about it. Judah, right, came from Leah. Levi, where all the priests would come from. Jesus came out of Judah, right? All the priests came out of Levi. All the kings, except for Saul, came out of Judah. So I think she gave him, either 6 or 7 sons and a daughter, Dinah. And Rachel only gave Benjamin and Joseph. Now, no disrespect to those two, but Leah even gave him more children. So sometimes as a woman, I know it could feel like you're doing a lot for a man and he's not even reciprocating whatever it is, but you got to think about it. I mean, biblically speaking, Leah did more for him as a wife, which is, one of the, I ain't gonna call him no prophet, but a wise man who kind of passed away a while ago basically said that the greatest honor a woman can do is to have his child, right? And she gave him either 6 or 7. Not quite sure which number was, but she gave me the 6 or 7. And she was still almost seen as second nature to his sister, the one that he wanted really bad, and the one he was willing to work 7 years for. So it's just something just to think about. You know what I mean? Because I know sometimes you can feel like you're doing a lot in a relationship, and maybe you don't feel like you're getting appreciated. Then in this monogamous society that we have now, maybe you have to think about it. You're the Leah, but the man you're with is trying to find his Rachel. He might not even be willing to work 7 years or deal with her for 7 years to get it. But sometimes you end up in a relationship where you're the Leah. And the Leah is doing more for Jacob than what the Rachel is doing. But sometimes you just don't get the recognition, or you don't even get the love that you feel that should be returned for all it is that you do. So if you're in a situation where you got a Jacob and you realize you're the Leah and he's waiting on that Rachel, it might be a situation you want to get out of. Let's continue. So Isaac and Rebekah. This is one of the few biblical times where I saw like there was, I'm not going to say there was an intervention, but there was a word that came out and then there was confirmation and action. Okay. This is dealing with when Abraham sent his servant to the well to find Rebekah. And I know I spelled Rebekah wrong because I spelled it I know it's with a K-A-H, but I spelled it improperly. I apologize, but y'all know who I'm talking about. So this is one of the few times in the Bible where we have a relationship, right? Where there was some sort of divine prophecy about the relationship in the formation, right? We've had formations about pregnancies plenty of times, right? From Jesus to John the Baptist to Esau and Jacob. So we've had plenty of prophecies about pregnancy, but not too many. And if you see some other ones, you can just comment in the comment sections about other relationships that were formed through some sort of prophetic or just a what I would call a divine confirmation. And this is what brought Isaac and Rebekah together. But I did want to point out something real quick in Genesis 24:16, because I think it's important, because some of these terms that were used, I don't think we really understand kind of what it means. So in Genesis 24:16, it says, it's talking about Rebekah, and it says the girl was very beautiful, a virgin and unmarried. And it said, and she went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. See, the point right there, it says she was a virgin and unmarried. And another one, it says she was a virgin and she hadn't known a man yet. And we know that term known to mean that she had sex, right? So that term virgin don't always just mean somebody who's never had sex before. It could also mean somebody who was just as they called them, a young woman or a young maiden also. So you could have had somebody in the Bible where they used a term that was virgin. However, it could have meant something else. So I just wanted to point that out. And from what we know in the Bible, it doesn't say Isaac had concubines like Abraham. He didn't have multiple wives like Jacob. So this is one of the few monogamous relationships that we see in the early part of the Bible. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to point that out because once again, we throughout the Bible, we see multiple levels of marriage. We see a lot of polygamous marriages. We see even with someone like King David, who had a heart after God, is what the book says, right? He had multiple wives. He even put Saul's daughter away when she wanted to laugh at him or, talk about him when he was dancing so hard and things like that. So, and they said he had many concubines. And even when he got late in his years, they tried to send him another woman that maybe would be able to kind of rouse him up, heat him up when he was kind of sick at the end of his life. But you got to understand this was a different time period. So I just wanted to point that out. That's why I say a lot of women, you should be looking for an Isaac type of man. If you go back to my other teaching on the 5 biblical prototypes of men, I do believe most women do seek someone like an Isaac. Because from what we know, he only had 2 children, right? He only had Jacob and Esau. No sisters, no nothing. Not a lot of children. So just something to point out. King David and Bathsheba. And this is something you got to understand here. Without Uriah's death, there would have been no King Solomon, right? So I just put a Uriah or a Uriana could be necessary to get what you want. Now, what I mean by that, let me be, like I've already said it at the beginning. So if you weren't here at the beginning, I'm going to say it very clearly. I am not recommending that anyone commit adultery and kill a spouse to, in quotation marks, be happy. Let me say it 2 more times like Dr. Umar. I am not recommending adultery and murder to be happy. I am not recommending adultery and murder to be happy. I am not recommending adultery and murder to be happy. I'm using this in a spiritual sense because you have to remember King Solomon, who built the temple, right? Who was supposed to be the wisest king that ever lived. If there was no murder, if there was no adultery, even though we know that first child was lost, but if those things didn't happen, we don't get a King Solomon. Maybe we don't get a temple. I don't know. I can't go back and insert something into the scripture and say, oh, he would have just had a son through somebody else. We don't know that, but we know the story as written. So what I mean by this is, and this even kind of goes when you start talking about the Messiah, Yeshua, and all those things like that. What I mean is sometimes spiritually, not physically, somebody has to be sacrificed for you to get where you need to be. And I think sometimes you will be in a situation where you will just basically, I'm just going to ride it till the wheels fall off. But sometimes you understand what I'm saying? You got to send that Uriah or you got to send that Uriana to go fight in the vanguard where the fighting is toughest so they can get out of the way, get up out of here spiritually, not physically, not physical death, but spiritually. You need to break ties. They need to die off. You got to get rid of them. That's why I said a lot of people need to go to therapy because they're still holding on to a lot of this stuff. But you need to spiritually cleanse yourself of some of these things that could be blocking you. Now, I'm not saying that the person that you're dealing with right now is that Uriah, but bottom line is, if you're not getting what you want or even looking at some of your blessings that could be blocked, because like I said, without Solomon, we don't have a temple. And I'm not saying that Uriah was even a bad person. It just might be that person that is just stopping you from where you need to be. So spiritually, you need to cleanse yourself. It's almost like, when they talk about how they fight cancer and things like that, they cut out the tumor and they do the radiation to basically kill the area around it so it doesn't grow back. That's what I mean. Look at Uriah as somewhat of a tumor that was necessary, even though it went against the laws and the statutes and it was a sin. That's not what I'm saying. You don't have to sin. I just want you to be able to see what would have, if David would have never went up on that rooftop and saw her bathing, if he never would have acted on his lust, even though, like I said, it started in a bad place, right? I'm not trying to condone his actions, but what I am trying to say is you have to look at the results. And sometimes you are with a Uriah who is I mean, I hate to say it, he's in the way of your king. That Uriana is in the way of your queen. And sometimes we just continue to deal with people who are really standing in the way of some great things for us in the future. And it doesn't take adultery and murder for us to get that. It just takes a full cleansing, a full getting, honestly, getting rid of that person who is blocking us from greatness. So what I want to talk about is, man, I just want to make sure everybody was paying attention for these 45 minutes that I've been talking. So basically what I've been talking about today, I went over the origins of Valentine's Day, probably some good reasons why you shouldn't be participating. I understand you want the flowers, I understand you want the chocolate, I understand you want the dinner, but you have to understand what type of spouse or what type of person that you're dealing with. If they only recognize you on the day that the world does, which I've already talked about earlier, birthday, anniversary, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, you're probably not dealing with that great of a person. Let's just be honest, because you should want to celebrate someone who brings you joy. You should want to celebrate someone who you love, someone who you're in love with, someone who you are forming a family with. You should want to celebrate that person more than just 3 or 4 times a year. You should honestly be celebrating that person on a daily basis. You should be celebrating the good things about that person. Yes, we know nobody is perfect, right? But you should be picking out if it's just 1 to 2 things that your spouse is doing properly, right? Point those things out on a daily basis. You know what? I really appreciate this about you. You know what? I want to do something nice for you on a random day of the week. If I feel like if you can do it daily, try to at least make it weekly. Because I feel like monthly, you should just go find somebody else. But we should be looking for things on a daily basis. Like, I could sit here and complain about my wife all day, right? Either one of them, right? But it's like at the end of the day, I look out there in the dating pool, or I watch, shout out to Kendra G, man. I've been watching a lot of her single stuff lately, just as a form of entertainment. Like, not like I'm trying to see what's out there, but it's always good to get a reminder of what the person that you're with could be potentially saving you from. And if for nothing to save you from this horrible dating pool that exists in 2024, to me, that is enough that, your man should be getting, his feet rubbed tonight, his feet washed, neck rubbed, all of that good stuff tonight. You understand what I'm saying? Your woman, not just tonight, but just on any random day, should be getting flowers and chocolate and lunch sent to her job if she works. Or you should go make her a meal, or vice versa. You understand what I'm saying? Full body massage, whatever she wants, man. We should be definitely doing more for the people who are keeping us out of these type of situations. Because anybody who's single right now, even some of the people who are married, we are doing a very poor job of really showing the person that we're with how much we actually do appreciate them, because they are keeping us away from the nonsense that we see. They are keeping us away from a lot of these different things, man. And even though it's Valentine's Day, still want to give my boy a shout out, my cousin. It would have been nice if, I'm gonna probably have to try to take the missus out to his restaurant when I do get back in town. But I just want to let you know that this show is brought to you as all the Libre Network shows and all the different platforms and things we are brought to you by Southern Fusion Bistro. So, I also talked about how waiting on God could go wrong, right? Because some people say they've been waiting on God 20, 30 years. And they don't end up with anybody. And, they kind of end up regretting some of the decisions that they made because they've been, waiting on this magical spouse to appear. And like I said before, last time I checked, Eve was the only person on the planet that was created specifically for a man. So unless you think God is going to do something in the manner of creating a man out of nothing for you specifically, once again, I'm never going to doubt the power of the Most High, but I would hate to have to bank on that's the way I'm going to get my partner. God is going to do a supernatural miracle and actually create a living person that was designed specifically for me. Yeah, I'm not I'm not doing it. So I think the concept of waiting on God for a spouse is just, it's a bad idea. It's a horrible idea. And we shouldn't be talking about we were heaven sent or we were God sent and things like that. Now, we could say that, God knows I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. That could be a legitimate thing to say, depending on your dynamic in your relationship. But saying that even God sent you, I remember having a conversation with Gertrude the other day, and I told her, you have to be one of the I even use the term luck. I said, it was a lot of women who could have been in your position. And that's not a position of bragging. It's just saying, when you're dealing with this online stuff and you got 600 people in your inbox, somehow, some way, through all them 600 people in the inbox, you made it to the forefront of everything. And, like they say, the rest is history from this point. We also discussed, check for understanding is there any biblical evidence of God sending a mate, right? So, and then I also talked about the role of discernment, because if we want God's assistance in any of this, we definitely need to be praying for discernment. So even if you are there in the single, when you're swiping right or whatever apps that you're dealing with, and you gotta try to, dig and go through this mess out here, man, it's horrible, right? Then you definitely want to be dealing with discernment, because that's going to be about as good as it gets. Because if you're waiting on the divine, if you're waiting on a dove to descend with a name and an address and a phone number of some guy, once again, I'm never going to tell you it's not going to happen. But I think ain't that what Megan Good and her ex-husband now was talking about? Yeah. So we just want to be very careful. We want to use the tools that God has instilled with us. Discernment, but once again, it's going to be hard to discern if you're moving for the wrong reasons, right? Biblically speaking, there is money, material things. What can he buy you? You want a provider, right? That's something, that the Bible just said a man who does not work should not eat. But when we start talking about these level of providers that we want, these level of men that we want, right? You got to look at it and say, biblically speaking, what can I ask for? Ladies, attractiveness does not come into play. Sexual prowess. I messed that up. Sexual prowess doesn't come into play. The amount of money he makes doesn't come into play. He gonna beat up on the women, but guess what? I had to cut me up myself deep. Fellas, attractiveness doesn't come into play. How thick she is does not come into play. Her ability to do certain things in the bedroom, good, bad, terrible, whatever. I already discussed the reason why sometimes we'll have so many issues is because we've had too many sexual experiences, right? We've just had too much sex. So now we want one woman to do this like this one girl, or do this like this other girl, and we want her to be able to do all these great things in one package. The same thing with the women. You like the way this one guy did this one thing and this other thing, and now you want the guy who you want to spend the rest of your life with to be a combination of all these different men who you've been dealing with, when we were not designed that way, right? So once again, I know a lot of you probably out on some of these Valentine's Day, fighting some of these crowds, getting some horrible service while everybody's upset or stressed out, or people are just sitting there one across from each other, uh, not having a communication. We're just sitting across from each other, miserable on our phones, checking social media and things like that. And I just believe at the end of the day, if you believe in the same God that I do, and you believe that you serve a God of excellence, I believe there's an excellent result out there for everybody. But we just watched the Super Bowl, right? And as we watch the Super Bowl, we can say, hey, a guy can be open on every play. And just because the quarterback didn't throw you the ball doesn't mean what? You don't run the route the next time. Hold on. Excuse me. So it just means all you got to do is put yourself in a position to be ready to receive. And I feel like that's the best place to be. So regardless whether it's a mate, it's a spouse, it's a job, it's money, it's a house, it's a car, it's whatever, you know what the desires of your heart are. I feel like we need to continue to move in a righteous manner so that all we can do is be in a position to receive when it is our time. Because some of us are so damaged. Some of us are dealing with so many things internally, emotionally, spiritually, that even if that right man was right in front of you right now, right, not white, right, R-I-G-H-T, if I didn't say that clearly, that right man or that right woman is right in front of you, would you even be in a position to receive it? If you're a man and you're not working and you're not able to provide for yourself, what caliber of woman do you think you're going to be in a position to receive? And then have that type of relationship be the type of marriage that God wants for us. Same thing with the women. You know, you out here, you want to have hot girl summer, and you believe that you're going to be able to do all of these different things, and God is just going to say, all right, yeah, go ahead, do your thing, live your life. And then there's just going to be good men just waiting around after you've lived that life that we know is not a life that is acceptable in the sight of God. So I know you want your chocolate. I know you want your flowers, and fellas, they got another holiday they're trying to bring behind it. You can look it up yourself, but it involves steak and a certain act that could be performed on a man. I'm not gonna go into it because it's inappropriate. But yeah, any of these special days, once again, you should never feel special if the only time you feel special is when everybody else or when the world tells you to feel special. You should be dealing with somebody who makes you feel special on at least a weekly basis, if not a daily basis, if not an hourly basis. You should be feeling like this man or woman specifically are with you, or they chose you because you are someone of value to them. You are someone who brings something to their life. And like I said, if at a bare minimum, and if I don't say it, I'm gonna say it now. I love. I do, even though I don't necessarily always show it, and I might have a weird way of showing it at times, but I do sincerely love and appreciate the women who God has placed in my life. And once again, when I say God has placed in my life, I'm just saying not like He sent them. I didn't say the women God sent. I said placed, meaning they are in a position to be near me. Right. I am very appreciative of the fact of I don't have to deal with half of them people I see on the Kendra G show. So I am very appreciative, and I will do my best to demonstrate that. So to everybody who's tuning in tonight, uh, try to, if you are in a good marriage or you are in a good situation, don't assume that the person you're with really knows and understands that you feel that way. You have to be able to show it and demonstrate it. Love is not an emotion. Love is an action word, right? It's got to be shown repeatedly, consistently. And it's something that is done. It is not something that is just said. Like I always say, you don't have to tell somebody you love them if you just show and demonstrate it on a daily basis. But that's all I got for you tonight, man. Once again, I've been the Kung Fu Hebrew. I really hope that we can learn how to love and just treat, especially like I talk about treating just people better, but especially the people that we want to spend our lives with, the people that we say we love, are your husband, your wife, whoever, right? We should be able to demonstrate that these people mean more than just being a title. And we should be able to do that on a more consistent basis. So Until next week, man, I've been the Kung Fu Hebrew. Y'all be blessed. Don't be buying no chocolates. Don't be buying no flowers. Don't be taking these women out to no dinner tonight, fellas. We got to hold our ground. And you got to do it more consistently when the rest of the world is not telling you to do it. Peace.